Greetings from New York City. I have a few words I'd like to share with you regarding the function of art under the conditions of modernity. We've been talking about, and you've been reading and thinking about the image in modernity this week. I want to talk a little more in depth about the role of the work of art in the modern condition. What is important to keep in mind is that the ideological engine that drives modern art is the concept of the avant-garde. And the concept of the avant-garde was developed by the French utopian socialist Henri de Saint-Simon, who in 1824 wrote an essay in which he declared and argued for the artist, the intellectual, the poet, the musician, the creative to be the new priest class in modern society, and that it would be the artist, the intellectual, the creative that would provide guidance for society as it developed, as it was shaped. What's important to keep in mind as you've been reading and thinking about this week is that modernity understands the human being as the creator of society and the creator of culture, which means if there are problems in society, then humans have within their capacity and obligation to change them. This is a radical shift from the medieval, feudal, Western church's theological underpinning of God being the foundation of all things, and that things are the way they are because God created them and determined them to be that way. So what we have is a greater sense of human agency in the modern period. And again, it begins with Descartes thinking himself into being. The cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And so this notion of human agency, whether it's through thought or deed, becomes an important component of shaping society. So through Henri de Saint-Simon and this ideological notion of the avant-garde as the capacity to provide leadership for society, the artist is given a model for thinking about their role, not just as providing images for the church and the state to reproduce or to image power, to image truth as it has been declared by church and state, but to search for truth and to present that truth to society and as a way of transforming it. So art becomes, in this context, not a representation of stability, of ideological power. It becomes a means of transition, of cultural change. What is fascinating about it is that social and political change is believed to happen through the work of a painting or a poem or a piece of music. And there's tremendous importance and significance attached to the arts as a way not just to provide images, but to transform hearts and minds. And that fuels the development of modern art. So Gustave Courbet in 1855, creating his realist pavilion in opposition to the Academy, really in the history of modern art, the first solo exhibition, declares in his manifesto, and you could say also that it's his first artist statement, the first artist statement in the history of modern art, that he wants to create a living art, an art that comes out of life as it is lived in the present. When asked why he never painted angels and cherubs, he said, "You show me one and I'll paint it." So for Courbet, his notion of realism was to look at and respond to the world around him. And so what his and his successors, like Manet and the Impressionists and the Post-Impressionists, desired to do was to make a work of art, was to make art that came out of the needs, the flux, the issues of the present day, of modern life. They resisted the notion of idealizing, of perfecting, of creating a painting or a work of art that would represent truth with a capital T. Their work in many ways was a search for truth. And from a religious context, you could say that in the Renaissance and the classic age of the academies, that painters painted theology as a subject, as a content, but the artist within the modern age went into their studio and actually did theology. In that, they were asking fundamental questions about existence, who they are before God or whoever claimed a demand on them, and who they are before their neighbor, and who they were for themselves. So notions of identity, which were determined and shaped by the medieval church and feudal social and political culture, was torn asunder after the French Revolution, and you have new means of thinking about human agency in relationship to a world in which God has not determined everything. God is not marginalized completely from the picture. God just doesn't have a foundational place in terms of human thinking and action. And so that becomes the challenge by which artists now are presenting artwork, making artwork that is in the pursuit of truth, personal truth, social truth, and the whole notion of truth is rendered unstable. And the perception within the context of the avant-garde, in the context of art in modernity, is that art participates in this. It's shaping it. It's searching for it. And so it's doing what science is doing. It's doing what history is doing. It's doing what philosophy is doing. It's doing what politics is doing. It has a relevance in society. So I hope that helps you, and we'll continue to talk about this throughout the class. So I wish you a good day, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.